some interesting questions that I'm seeing are also on things like the glossary itself. Like, how are you using the glossary? But I think it would be useful to actually not just talk about how you're using the glossary, but how you've structured the glossary, and even like guidelines and things like that you built out, which I know was a very interesting library sciences kind of way of thinking about data, which is not normal. So I think it would be useful for everyone if you touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So when I am interested in taxonomy, which is different from taxidermy. It's not stuffing dead animals. It's just the organization and classification of information, and essentially it's putting information into groups. Like at the most base level, that's what it is, right? So you want to think about the terms that are in your organization, the words that are there in terms of groups. And I did create like rules and guidelines for filling out the glossary and creating new terms and everything. And like I said, like I initially had just like a bunch of terms that I had collected, from just like hearing different people talk and just in different meetings and everything. I'd previously been on a design team as an information architect. So I worked with a bunch of different teams, and each team that I worked with, they had their own language that they used that I had to learn, like when I would come in and work on these projects. And so I would write these things down and everything. And then having that list, just putting it into categories, right? So my rule was glossaries had to be plural, because a glossary was a collection of terms, and then like individual terms had to be singular, and that, definitions could not include like the word itself. Like that's a pretty standard rule though, right? And then just thinking about how those different terms relate together. So we have one glossary around like products, and then we have another around like memberships. Were those the same thing? Were those different things? They are different, and how do we relate those two? And making sure that we do create connections. Like the ability to create relationships and connections with terms is really, really great within Atlin. And that's kind of how you start to build it. I don't know, I think like a spider web, right? Like it's just like how all of these different things connect together, and building out like a mind map. It might help to actually like do a little like whiteboarding and have your glossaries, your individual glossaries as circles, and like draw lines between them, and define your relationships between them, and figure out how they do relate, if there are relationships between them. Yeah.